This morning I have two sharings, one now and one later on a much more complicated subject. But this morning's sharing, by rotation, the topic that is assigned to me is hell. Not exactly the most pleasant of topics, but I'm glad to see that so many of you are interested in hell. Or at least are trying hard to get out of hell. Now, I told Brother Edmund when he invited me to talk on hell that my views on this topic might not be mainline. And he said, very good. So, let me begin by, okay. Now, the Dhammapada verses in question are in that collection of Dhammapada verses called Niraya, which is a small section in which every verse in there relates to this central theme of hell. And verse 306 says, one who tells lies about others goes to Niraya. Niraya is the Pali word for hell. One who has done evil and says, I did not do it, also goes to Niraya. You will see that the word Niraya is purposely not translated to hell because the word Niraya may not necessarily have the same contextual meaning as hell that you and I interpret today. So whenever we deal with words like that, it is actually best not to translate it. It is just like the word dukkha, which is almost an impossible word to translate to English. So you will see we will use the word dukkha rather than use the word suffering, because suffering is only one very minor aspect of the word dukkha. But here it says both of them being evildoers suffer alike in Niraya in their next existence. Verse 307 says, many men wearing the yellow robe, which means the Sangha, up to their necks, who have an evil disposition and are unrestrained in thought, word, and deed, are reborn in Niraya on account of their evil deeds. Verse 308, it is better for one to eat a red hot lump of iron burning like a flame than to eat alms food offered by the people. This is again with reference to the Sangha. If one is without morality, sila, and unrestrained in thought, word, and deed. And this verse 308 is the one that is often quoted to remind Sangha members how important it is that they must practice, because they are receiving literally a full-time scholarship from the lay people to give them that opportunity to practice. So if they do not practice, then they are doing something which is not at all correct. Verse 309, 4 misfortunes befall a man who is unmindful of right conduct and commit sexual misconduct with another man's wife, acquisition of demerit, disturbed sleep, reproach, and suffering in Niraya. You will see that all the above are actually clear-cut lessons in morality and possible very severe consequences being pointed out. And these 4 refers to both lay people, like in verse 306, Sangha, and of course, lay people. Now, just now, you all took the 5 precepts, and did you notice the picture that was used to illustrate when you were taking the 5 precepts? It shows an image of the Buddha doing this, if you had paid attention just now. This is also called the mudra of abhaya, either left hand or right hand. Abhaya is a Pali word. Those of you from Malaysia or from Indonesia would know that the word bahaya means danger. Bahaya and abhaya came from the same root word. Malay borrowed lots and lots of words from Sanskrit. So if you know Malay, Sanskrit is relatively easier. Pali is relatively easier. So abhaya means the absence of the fear of danger. And you will often see this mudra in traditional Buddhist temples. You go to Wat Ananda, for example, you see the image of the Buddha on one side like that, and the other side like that. And this is the mudra of abhaya, fearlessness, the absence of fear of danger. Usually in Pali, when you would put the word a in front, in front, it's the opposite. So, why is it that when you recite the 5 precepts so beautifully they put this? It is because people don't want to have danger. People don't want to have things which are unwholesome happen to them. And when you take the 5 precepts, this is exactly what happens. People often ask to a venerable, oh, can you give me an amulet, some talisman, whatever, to protect me? And of course, the famous story is, oh yes, of course, take this image back, stand behind it, it will protect you from whatever. Bullet also cannot penetrate. Okay, that being the usual standard story. Now, the point is that when you take the 5 precepts and you have the image of the Buddha in abhaya, is that if you wish to be protected, you keep the 5 precepts. Because in keeping the 5 precepts, you protect yourself. You literally protect yourself. 5 precepts. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you want to be protected? The abhaya image. 5 precepts. Of course, people want even more. And of course, yes, I agree. In the sutras, if you go to Samyutta Nikaya, the Deva Samyutta section, a section all with regards to higher beings called Devas, there was one particular chapter in which it recalls how Sakya was coming out of one of the heavens, and his driver, his charioteer, saw him paying respects to the 4 directions. So his driver asked him, you are Sakra, you are Tian Kung, you know. All right? How many Hokkiens are in this room? On the 9th day of Chinese New Year, pay respect to Tian Kung. He said, you are Tian Kung, you know, who are you paying respect to? And Sakra replied, I am paying respect to all the people who keep their precepts. Because they are such morally pure, kind people that even I, as a Deva, pay my respects to them. So, remember, okay? Now, the contrary is what we just read in the Dhammapada. That if you do rather unwholesome things, then you have these unwholesome effects. And as I shared yesterday afternoon, the principle of karma has nothing to do with morally right or morally wrong. Please remember that. Karma is just cause and effect. Cause and effect does not look at whether it is morally right or morally wrong. If I take this glass cup, put it at the edge of this table, and I pushed it and it falls down, it hits the ground, it breaks. Is that morally right or morally wrong? It's neither. It is just a cause, and given the correct condition of a hard floor, it breaks. That's the effect. If there's a big cushion here, and this falls and it lands on the cushion, so the conditions for it to break is not there. So it may not break. That is what karma is about. The Buddha was really a very scientific man. He said this is Karma vipaka, cause and effect. You do something, there will be a sequence of events subsequent to what you do. If what you do is study hard in uni, and you get a good degree, you graduate with first or second upper, and then you get a good job. That's karma vipaka. You go to uni, you don't study, like many of my students, party every weekend, fool around. How we know is Facebook. Now, cannot escape everything on Facebook. The party haven't begun, I already saw it on Facebook. And so, you don't get good results, you pass by the skin of your teeth, it's karma vipaka. All right? It's not morally right or morally wrong. It's just cause and effect. So similarly in here, you see, when you do something unwholesome, there will be effects. Those effects may not necessarily be pleasant. Those effects may similarly be very painful. But those effects are the result of your own action. Okay? Why do we say it may not necessarily be classified as morally right or morally wrong? That's because the human classification of what is morally right and morally wrong changes with time. What the Buddha teaches is timeless. I've always repeated this, that if you say this is a truth holds true, irrespective of time, space, and position. So when we say, the Buddha said that all compound things are impermanent, that is true irrespective of 2,600 years ago, now, and 2,600 years in the future. That is why that is a truth. Okay? If we say all compound things will lead to dissatisfaction because of the nature of change, dukkha, anicca leading to dukkha, that is a truth irrespective of time, place, and position. Whether you're in Melbourne, Singapore, or Thailand, that holds true. Whether it is now, 2,000 years ago, that holds true. But much of what we consider as morally right and morally wrong changes with time. For example, as I shared yesterday, my late grandfather had 3 wives, and I have no idea how many mistresses. So he was a true Chinese man with Sam Chai Sei Tip. I came from the second grandmother. The second grandmother is the only one I have seen. By the time I was born, the grandfather has passed away. The first grandmother has passed away. I had not seen the third grandmother. Neither did I see any of his mistresses. They could be one of your ancestors in this hall. So the question we ask grandmother is, how can you accept it in those days? But to her, every man did it in that era. There was nothing morally wrong. Every China man of that era did it. So that was considered as, wow, you very good. All his male friends probably pat on his back and say, wow, you very king. And my grandmother got 12 children, mind you. So this is what we mean. Today, if Jenny's husband is to do that, I don't think he will even reach home alive. Our standards have completely changed. Okay, so this is what we mean. So what the Buddha taught is always truth, not things which are relative to time, place, and position, but truth. And these lessons that we see in front of us have to be remembered were lessons given in the context of the cultural milieu of 2,600 years ago. But nevertheless, the lesson that is taught here, not to do things which are wrong, or you will have unwholesome consequences, represented by the word niraya here, and of course a warning given to the Sangha that you wear the robe, you must behave appropriately. It's just like Dhamma leaders, even lay people. If you sit here and you accept tea from Brother Chang Wee, food from Brother Chang Wee, from Brother Jerry, etc., 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 then you have to maintain a certain sort of expected behavior. All right? So similarly, Here they say, if you are a Sangha and you accept alms food, but you are unrestrained, then it is like eating a red hot lump of iron. Just to show you how much of discomfort. And of course, for a man, if you do not keep the 5 precepts, you harm people, then this is what is this consequence. These are clear-cut lessons that you must do what is wholesome and avoid what is unwholesome, because you do not want the effect of unwholesome actions. Okay? Now, this is the Niraya Vagga. It comes from the 22nd chapter of the Dhammapada. But there are other suttas as well. For example, in the canon, there is a sutta called the Niraya Sutta, which deals with Niraya. And it tells you in summary, 5 things lead to hell, Niraya: destruction of life, theft, lust, falsehood, liquor. Does these 5 things sound familiar? You just took it. The 5 precepts. Okay? Left and right hand, remember. Okay? Now, what does the word Niraya mean? The root word that's written there. To go asunder means to split. Asunder is an old English word. To means to split. To go to destruction, to die. Now, we today associate the word hell with purgatory, and it seems to us fixed in our mind and in our culture, a place of punishment and torture. In Chinese culture, my oldest daughter related to me that when she was small, I brought her to Haupthaus Villa, and she said, "Daddy, you scarred me for life." So, okay, maybe that was a mistake. Okay. In the West, of course, Dante's poem scarred generations of people for life with its vivid description. Okay. And of course, in Chinese culture, even worse. Not only are there hells, these hells got like first class, second class, third class, fourth class, fifth class, sixth class, endlessly. Almost endless divisions. And if you look at the evolution of Buddhist literature, the more it progresses, the more graphic the hells became. Okay? So, this concept of hell, many religions have hell. But you may be surprised that many religions, the concept of hell is a relatively new thing. Many of you may not be aware, for example, that in many theistic religions, hell was only something that developed much, much later. Okay? Buddhists believe, of course, in this classification of 31 planes of existence. And of course, in these 31 planes, those of you familiar would realize that there are 25 planes which are good planes, so-called heavens, and the remaining one, only one is called hell. So not bad, you got 25 good ones and 1 bad one, so it's not bad. Statistically, much higher chance of going to the good one. Okay? Now, but is this universally accepted? Egerton Baptist is one of the early Western scholars of Buddhism. In the early 20th century, he already had written many books, and some of these books are still floating around. I looked just now in the library. I couldn't find any of Egerton's books there. But he wrote, there are people even among Buddhists who do not believe in the existence of the non-human, unhappy lower worlds. They seem to think that these unhappy states are actually experienced on the human plane itself because they see much misery in varying degrees among human beings. The question that Egerton Baptist raises a very simple, straightforward question that in the light of the 21st and 20th century when he wrote it, where people are more educated, more thinking, do people still subscribe to a physical hell somewhere below, somewhere? Okay? Or do people now realize that the hell that we are referring to is a mind state rather than a physical state? Now, I always say this, that if you go to Haupavilla and you look and you see they boil you in oil, they poke you with this, they cut you with that. I said, now if you look at Star Wars, in the far, far galaxy a long, long time ago, they're actually far more sophisticated than us. So I would imagine hell would be far more sophisticated. They just get dentists and drill your root canal. You know, why go to such grandiose things of wasting oil, you know? Yeah, far better ways of torture. But the question that is, which lies is that it is obvious that these graphic descriptions are because the people who wrote them at that point in time didn't know there were dental drills. So they used what they would consider as an extreme form of torture, being cut by knife, being burned, being boiled, being fried. You see? And nowadays we have different things. We just lock you in the room and play sound of music 24-hour non-stop. You go mad probably. So here I want to show you a little video clip. Venerable Dhammananda is one of the most respected venerables that taught in Malaysia. He taught in Malaysia for more than 50 years. He also taught in Singapore. And of course, he passed away a few years ago. But he is one of the most respected venerables.
Venerable sir, I've got one question here. I think in all religions, there's this concept of heaven and hell. And inevitably, we talk about one heaven, one hell, permanent heaven, permanent hell. But is it the same in Buddhism?
So according to Buddhism, there is no particular place that we can introduce as heaven or hell. Either created a God or come into existence automatically or naturally. One of the rich men during the Buddha's time approached him. His name was Kutadanta. He said, we are rich people, we have no time to meditate and observe precepts and all sort of things, but even then we would like to go to heaven after our death. Is there any shortcut? Then the Buddha asked, why do you want to wait until you die to experience heavenly bliss? While you are living here in this world, you can experience heavenly bliss. This is the Buddha's concept regarding heaven. That means heaven is not a particular place located somewhere in this universe where living beings experience, either in human forms or any other forms, where they experience peace, happiness, satisfaction in their life. That is heaven. Again, in another discourse, the Buddha says, he used this word, only foolish people believe that hell is located under this earth or under great ocean or under the Mahameru. Hell is not located anywhere. Hell means endless suffering. From birth up to the last breath, nothing but suffering. Either humans or animals or any other forms of living being. It is hell. Now we are not in hell. Although we have sufferings, we can laugh, we can joke, we can enjoy. Again we suffer. Therefore we are not in hell. But there are many other living beings from their birth up to last breath, nothing but physically and mentally suffer. That is hell. This is the Buddhist concept of heaven and hell.
Now the next venerable, I want you all to look at him and see whether you can identify who he is. Because he taught for 10 years in Malaysia before he was reassigned to America. Buddhist Fellowship Singapore loves this venerable. But he is a very young venerable when this video clip was taken. So I want to see whether you can identify him. Remember, he taught in Malaysia for 10 years before he was reassigned to America.
Samyutta Nikaya, there is a statement that Buddha made. He said he has seen people living in heaven people living in heaven. How people can live in heaven? In heavens you expect deities to live. But he said, I have seen people living in heaven. How? Those who, whenever they see something, hear something, smell something, taste something, touch something, and think something, they rejoice it. They don't become envious. They don't become jealous. They don't become angry. They are not frightened. They enjoy it. These are the ones who experience heaven as human beings. On the other hand, he said, I have seen human beings in hell. Who are they? They are the ones who, whenever they see something, hear something, touch something, smell something, and think something, they are so full of jealousy, fear, anxiety, worry, greed, hatred, and so forth, and therefore they are experiencing hell. So I just want to support what Venerable already mentioned.
Who is the Venerable? Sorry? Yes, that's right. Very young then, right? Yes, that's Venerable Gunaratana, who taught in Malaysia for about 10 years before he was reassigned to go to America. Now, let me continue. So, however, I always want to point this out, that whenever we talk about heavens and hells after death, this is just speculation. And if you look at Samyutta Nikaya 48-44, that's a beautiful sutta in which the Buddha taught a group of monks about the 5 faculties. Okay, the faculties of faith, energy, mindfulness, concentration, and wisdom. So the Buddha gave a group of monks with Sariputta sitting beside him this discourse on the 5 faculties. At the end of the discourse, the Buddha asked the Venerable Sariputta, do you believe in what I just said? And the Venerable Sariputta said, yes, Lord, I believe in what you just said. But it is only because I have experienced it and confirmed it for myself. Now, in any other teaching, in any other teacher, that will be cause for excommunication, because that's a direct challenge, if not insult, to the teacher. But in that sutta, you will see the Buddha praised Sariputta and said, Venerables, this is the attitude that you must follow, that you must never accept anything on just because somebody said it, but that you must always verify for yourself that it is true, even if I said it. So, as I said, I can't remember whether I have been to hell before, so I can't really tell you. So I always say this is speculation. Okay, of course, there's always this joke among theistic religions of St. Peter standing at the gate. A man comes and he asks the man, are you married or single? And the man said, I'm married, sir. And St. Peter said, oh, welcome to heaven. You already had been to hell. But that, of course, is a joke. Purely a joke, okay? All the wives here will come out of my name. Now, speculation takes us away from the present, and the Buddha's teaching is always on the present moment, living correctly in the present moment. And the earliest use of this word niraya is actually not from Buddhist sources, it's from the Vedas. And even this being called Yama is from Vedic sources. Okay? So there was some obvious cut and paste onto Buddhist literature. Okay? Now, the early texts, however, do not describe it in that graphic way that the Chinese culturally believe it to be, okay, with horse head and cow head and all that. The early texts merely describe it as a dark and depressing place like the minds of most people who are depressed. During the first millennium BCE, okay, first millennium before Common Era, nowadays we do not use AD anymore, we use Common Era. Okay, the concept of multiple hells came in, and then it became more and more and more complicated. And as far as Ajahn Brahm concerned, the deepest, darkest hell is called karaoke hell. Now, even within the Pali Canon, there are a few suttas which describe it with great, great, great detail, including one called the Devadatta Sutta, which describes how the poor man, blah, 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 because of his misdeeds, got into this horrible place. And what it is described is something, of course, like Haupavila. Okay, and if the point of the authors then is to scare people and to keep people on the straight path, then, of course, in that sense, it has succeeded. It has frightened the life out of many people, including my daughter. Okay? So if that was the point of the authors, then yes, they have succeeded. So what is hell? For some, it's very, very real. For some, it's a very, very real physical place, and for some, no. So I'm going to give some eminent people's view of what they think from both sides. First, from the late Supreme Patriarch of Thailand, not the present one, the previous one, okay, who was teacher of many, many eminent venerables in both Malaysia and Indonesia. And this is what he wrote. In the religious sphere, the concept of heaven and hell is a very prominent belief. In many cases, it becomes the very goal of religious practice itself. And without naming, there are many theistic religions whose aim is heaven. And if you don't follow, you go to hell. On this very subject, His Holiness, the late Supreme Patriarch, critically analyzes the very concept, and he thinks, in his view, that the belief of heaven and hell in Buddhism is a cultural influence of indigenous culture and belief. And he states, the subject of cosmology appeared in Buddhism. It clearly can be seen that it is not Buddhist teaching at all, but an ancient geography. The concept and belief about it was included in the Buddhist canon merely because of strong influence of popular belief of the time. That means in the cultural milieu of the time, in the geography of that time, the Buddhist teachings stand on that. If Buddhism teaches such belief on heaven and hell, it would not be Buddhism at all, but an ancient geography. Buddha wouldn't be the Buddha who delivered the noble truth and the timeless message for mankind. The Patriarch shows in his teaching that the concept of heaven and hell in Buddhism are in fact symbolic, representing the quality of mind and spirituality instead. One can be in heaven and hell in this very earth and life. No need to wait until one dies. And here I want to show you a clip. Now, that obviously shows you that in this opinion, heaven and hell exist here, and heaven and hell are states, physical states in which you and I live in. Singapore is a heaven. There are many places. You just go to Manila, walk into any slum, that's hell. Okay? Now, what about Ajahn Buddhadasa? Ajahn Buddhadasa is considered one of the foremost scholars of the 20th century. And he's the one who really taught us to live at every moment fully. And he said, and I read, by the way, all of Ajahn Buddhadasa's books are available freely on the internet. Okay? In everyday language, hell is a region under the earth. It is ruled over by a god of death, Yama, whom we have just found out is cut and paste from Vedic literature, who carries off people and subjects them to all sorts of punishment. It is a place where one may go after death. Contrast this with hell as understood in Dhamma language. Here hell is anxiety. Anxiety which burns us up, which burns us just like a fire. Whenever anxiety afflicts us, burning us up like a fire, we are in hell, the hell of Dhamma language. Anyone who rolls himself with anxiety just as he might burn himself with fire is said to fall into hell in that same moment. And just as anxiety is of various kinds, so we recognize various kinds of hells corresponding to them. In Singapore, you have got corporate hell, you've got domestic hell, you've got so many types of hell, from PSLE hell to endless. You fill in the blanks yourself. In Malaysia, we just got one hell. Political hell. True enough, the heaven and hell of everyday language are external realms, though don't ask me where. And they are attained after death. But the heaven and hell of Dhamma language are to be found in the mind and may occur at any time, depending on one's mental makeup. This is how the woeful states of Dhamma language differ from those of everyday language. This is the late Ajahn Buddhadasa. So at this point, I apologize for shaking up your belief system, because some of you might find this sharing quite shocking to the very foundations of your belief. What about the Venerable Thich Nhat Hanh, a contemporary Buddhist teacher, very well known? I have been in hell, many kinds of hell. And I have also noticed that even in hell, compassion is possible. With the practice of Buddhist meditation, you may very well prevent hell manifesting. And if hell has manifested, there are ways to transform hell into something that is much more pleasant. When you get angry, hell is born. Anger makes you suffer a lot. And not only do you suffer, but the people you love also suffer at the same time. When you don't know how to practice, from time to time we create hell in our own families. Okay, show you a clip.
The topic of today's Dharma talk is Buddhist hell. Now, of course, from the standpoint of absolute reality, no heaven or hell is dualistic opposites. Just reality as it is, the suchness of life. But we humans, we put our labels on this dynamic flowing reality and we say, oh, this part is heaven, this part, these kind of things are hell. Okay? So let's use those terms so we can receive a teaching and have more right understanding and how to live. In Buddhism, heaven and hell are what we create here and now, not places we go after we die. You see, causes and conditions. Conditions are the indirect surroundings we find ourselves in, or that come to us. But the cause, the direct cause, The immediate cause is us. It's more internal, not external surroundings. It's our attitude, okay? And it's our inner way that we deal with, respond to the conditions that we're in. Therefore, how we respond, especially, let's say, if someone acts in an angry way to us, usually we get angry back. You say, of course, he made me angry. We don't realize that we have a lot more control over what goes on between our ears than trying to control others or make the world, our situation, exactly the way we want. This is not just a matter of ethical ideals or moral values. This is very pragmatic too. Because if you spend all your energy and time in getting upset because people won't be like you want them to be, or conditions won't come about even though you worked hard, okay? You should do that, indeed. But how you do it, your attitude, your inner state, is important. And there's for example, a famous story in the Buddhist literature about a samurai general who was going into battle, and he was kind of arrogant. He didn't know much about Buddhism, but he started to think, I'm going to get killed, and I want to know if I'm going to hell or heaven, and I want to get resolution on this. So he went to a teacher and said, I only have a few minutes before I go into battle, but straighten out this heaven and hell stuff for me right away. And the teacher said, well, I don't know if an arrogant guy like you could understand teaching, even if I had a lot of time to explain it. And he went on to sort of berate this samurai. Now, samurai wore social class is the highest class in society. Priests, merchants, farmers, all below. And at that feudal time, samurai could even kill someone, behead them with his sword, and no consequences. That's how high the top social class was. So he didn't want to be insulted by these remarks, so he started to draw a sword out. And the priest said, there open the gates of hell. And this stunned the priest. He realized he received a great teaching here. And through the skillful means of this teacher, and so he put his sword back and he prostrated him on the ground and bowed in respect and gratitude to this great teaching he received. And then the priest said, there, open the gates of heaven.
Isn't that a beautiful teaching? So every time, a Zen teacher in America, okay, he knows, he identified it, Venerable Guang Shen of Canada. Okay, so every time your husband makes you angry, you say, there, open the gates of hell. Okay. Now, Ajahn Brahm, I realize from that the hell realms are created by you. If you have done some bad karma and you to go to a hell realm, it's because only you think you deserve to go there. That's all. No one sends you down there. You send yourself down there. No one reads out your past misdeeds. You remember them. And that's what it feels like. That's how you perceive it. You stay down as long as you feel you need to. It's called guilt. All right? Okay. Where is Ajahn Brahm? There.
There are heaven and hells. Who sent you down to hell? And what's it like down there? If you go to the temples in Sri Lanka, in Burma, in Thailand, you see all these pictures of these big vats and people boiling in the vats, and these beings who look like something out of a Steven Spielberg movie, or a cartoon book poking you with sticks, going up the tree of swords or whatever. And that was, people actually loved looking at those paintings, because in those days before they had movies, that was, they got off on. I don't know why it is that people like going to torture chambers. I remember the Madame Tussauds gallery had more people going to the Chamber of Horrors than any other part of the gallery. There's something weird about people they like to see sort of suffering. So in those days, that was the entertainment. They painted it on the temple wall so people could watch all this stuff. And I looked at that stuff and I sort of wondered, 25 centuries have gone by since then. Torture has got much more advanced. There's much better ways of torturing people than poking them with sticks. In fact, please, this is for you and Robin and all the people from Penang. 2 or 3 years ago, that was actually 2 years ago, when I went to Penang to do the 9-day retreat. I'm going again next month. It was Christmas night, and after finishing the talk, up in the hall at the top, and I went back to my room, it was about 10:30, and just on the opposite side of the road, they're having a party for Christmas night. A karaoke party. My God, that was suffering. I've been teaching all day, I was tired, I wanted a rest, and people were singing this karaoke. And it's the first time I've heard karaoke. What you do, first of all, you have to be drunk, first of all. And then they think they can, sing, Frank Sinatra or, Barbra Streisand or something. And they can't. And it's out of tune. It's, they forget the words, it's screaming, and it's, if you're drunk, you don't notice it. But for sober people like me, like monks, it was such suffering. And I didn't finish till about 1 o'clock. I forget what the time it was. And then I get up early in the morning, so I didn't get much sleep that night. But I realized that if ever the worst type of hell in the whole world will be the karaoke hell. Forget about being boiled in his big tubs and his demons poking you with sticks. Karaoke hell is much worse than that.
Okay. Now, so all of us had been through hell. Okay. Now, I've shown you Theravada tradition, I've shown you Mahayana tradition. I cannot find one in the Vajrayana tradition, but I managed to find this from Shantideva, the great man who wrote about the way of the Bodhisattva. That book is available in your library. Okay, and he writes, the burning grounds of hells, the guards of hell realm, who made them? Nobody made them. These places came out of our own negative thoughts or negative emotions. These realms are not physical places that we can go to. They exist only in our mind, and we can only find them through our mind. For instance, if we really hate something, and if we die with this hatred and violence still in our mind, it is said that we could be born into that hell realm. The hell realm could be in this place or that at the same time. It could be anywhere and everywhere, because it is in our own mind. The human realm is no more real than the hell realm, and the hell realm is no less real than the human realm. All of them are of the same nature. They are as real as our experiences of them, and these experiences come mostly from our own mind, with of course many different causes and effects, but through our own karma. Now, this is taken straight from a book. He talked about how in the hell realms, for example, a sentient being could end up in a burning iron house surrounded by blazing fire, and think, where did all this come from? Shantideva said that it comes from nowhere, but that being's own mind. It is not as if someone in a place called hell built the iron house, lit the blazing fire, and thought, aha, I'm waiting for Thupten Yeshe. Soon he will die and come here. I am ready for him. It's not like that. Hell does not exist in that way. Now, this is from Samyutta Nikaya 36.4. It's called the Potala Sutta. Now here I want to explain the word Potala a bit. You notice the word is Potala. It doesn't say Niraya. Potala in Pali just means a space or a place, okay, that is underneath the earth. And in the culture of that time, people believe that all these bad things, the demons, the asuras, the hell beings, they all live in this place underneath the earth. Okay? And so the Buddha referred to this as the Potala Sutta. Monks, when an uninstructed run-of-the-mill person makes that statement, there is a bottomless chasm in the ocean. He is talking about something that doesn't exist, that can't be found. Well, if you drill in the ocean, if you are lucky, might get oil, but so far nobody has struck hell. The word bottomless chasm is actually a designation for painful bodily feeling. When an uninstructed run-of-the-mill person is touched by a painful bodily feeling, he sorrows, grieves, and laments, beats his breast, and becomes distraught. This is called an uninstructed run-of-the-mill person who has not risen up off the bottomless chasm, who has not gained the foothold. But when a well-instructed disciple of the Noble One is touched by a painful bodily feeling, he does not sorrow, grieve, or lament, does not beat his breast or become distraught. This is called a well-instructed disciple of the Noble Ones who has risen up of the bottomless chasm, whose foothold is gained. Now, on the other hand, you have got also scholars who believe that hell is a real physical place, and Bhikkhu Bodhi is one of them. And Bhikkhu Bodhi writes, there is no doubt that the texts intend hell to be understood as a separate realm of existence distinct from the human realm and as real to its inhabitants as our world is to us. Note that they describe rebirth into other realms as occurring with the dissolution of the body after death. There is no evidence at all in the text that they intend the hell realms to be just metaphors for extremely painful experiences here in the human world. So as I said, there are two different views, and Bhikkhu Bodhi is one of it being a real physical place. So do we have any middle way between the two? Because Buddhists always choose middle way. Okay? Now, the preservation of Buddhist rationalism, again this is from a book, seems secure. Hell is a metaphor for a state of mind rather than a supernatural belief. Rebirth can be thought of as a figure of speech for the constant process of becoming, in which the self ever renews itself through the qualities of its speech, thought, and action. Okay? Like the flame that is passed from candle to candle, the continuity of the self is sustained by the energy source that is one's own karma. The essential lesson is that what you do now is of paramount importance, because greed, hatred, and delusion, or their opposite, determine your reality in both immediate and far-reaching ways, making all of us responsible for the world that we construct. It also seems that, as in the case with Christian doctrine, there are more or less sophisticated understandings of Buddhist doctrine. The uneducated are more literal-minded and concern themselves with cosmic reward and punishment. The religious elites, such as the monks, on the other hand, aspire to the higher goal of enlightenment and understand that heaven and hell are embodiments of their own consciousness. Observers of Buddhism repeatedly note that there are two distinct levels of teaching in the tradition, one for the unsophisticated masses and one for the religious professionals. So here it appears that there are two levels of understanding of these realms. One, a literal level, and two, a psychological or spiritual level. For simple people, the fear of hell was an education to promote good behavior. For more insightful people, the meaning of hell is largely psychological. How you see them is up to you. Whether we are in the psychological hell or the physical hell, what is the difference? It is still dukkha. Traditionally, Buddhists took hell to be a real place, but there are also more subtle teachings that say it is to be understood as states of mind. The two are not necessarily mutually exclusive. The realms can be viewed in both ways. And here I want you to take a look at the teaching by the Venerable Thich Nhat Hanh. It's a very long clip, so I'm just going to fast forward. 5:30. So this is the preamble. And I'm going to fast forward the translations, etc., etc.
Also had the theme of, in such a hell, appropriately in this life, moment are these metaphors.
There's a question about the way he asked the question to look,
okay,
and to see that the teaching of the Buddha can help many people. Not only the people who have a high intellectual capacity, and the people who do not have enough education. So the teaching of the Buddha help everyone. So there is Buddhism, there is the kind of Buddhism for the vast majority, and then there is deep Buddhism for only a minority. So these teachings might contradict each other as far as the form is concerned. And that is why it is said that in Buddhism there are 4,000 Dhamma doors. Many kinds of teaching and many kinds of practice. And there are those who are afraid of punishment. And if they know how to be afraid of retribution, and they behave better, because they are afraid of retribution. And that is why to talk to them about hell, all kind of hells, hot and cold, and so on, that may happen. This is kind of threat. If you behave like that, you will suffer like this. So in many temples we see drawing of hell, and that's kind of warning. If you don't practice the Five Precepts, you will suffer like that. You'll be boiled in hot oil or something like that. If you lie, and then they take when you go to the hell, they take your tongue and they cut your tongue. And that helps many people also. But that does not help other people. That is popular Buddhism. And we know that the vast majority believe in rebirth, in reincarnation, but their belief is based on the wrong view of the self. There is a self, there is a soul that is distinct from the body, and when the body is gone, the soul always survives and seeks to penetrate into another body and continue. That is a kind of belief on rebirth and so on. And that is the teaching of rebirth, but it's not truly the deep teaching of the Buddha, because it is based on the wrong view of the self. So any teaching that goes against the insight of impermanence, no self, and nirvana cannot be described as the deepest teaching. So whether you are thinking about cause and effect, rebirth, retribution, if your teaching or your practice do not reflect the insight of impermanence, no self, and nirvana, and that is not truly the teaching of the Buddha. So there are many things that has come from the teaching of the Vedas, of the Upanishads. We know that before the Buddha, there was already the belief in reincarnation and retribution.
Okay.
It's not invented by the Buddha. The teaching of retribution and reincarnation had already existed before the coming of the Buddha. But this teaching was based on the existence of a self. The Buddha, although he teaches the continuation, life after life, but his teaching is based on the insight of no self, impermanence, and finally nirvana, no birth and no death.
Okay, so now we come to finally. So what is real is just an appearance to our mind. Okay, no appearance has any form of self-nature, the teaching of anatta. If you are to fall asleep and dream of a hell realm, would that appearance be any less real if you fail to wake up from this dream? And the more we become familiar with appearances and we grasp at it, the more we make it real and self-existing. This is the teaching of Paticca Samuppada, or dependent arising, or dependent origination, or conditional arising. So while the layman's understanding may not be perfect, it is fine for one to say that according to them, it is real because it appears that way. And when we are in a hellish state of mental existence, it sure doesn't feel symbolic. It's very difficult and painful and very real. Maybe not a physical place down there, but still very uncomfortable. And understanding of a physical or literal realm, hell realm, gives us the vocabulary to describe this experience of life. Now, we always talk of an intermediate state after death. People worried about this bardo state, which is vividly described in Vajrayana Buddhism. But actually, I'm more concerned with our intermediate or bardo state before death, not after death. I'm not worried about the one after death. I'm more worried about one before death. And that we are all in a bardo right now. We are all in between something. In between breakfast and lunch. In between the appointment that we have at 2 o'clock. We are all existing in a bardo state. We are all existing for tomorrow, for next month, for my next pay rise, for my next promotion. So we are all in between existences. And this is what the Buddha doesn't want us to do. He wants us to live moment to moment in the now, fully aware, not the bardo of waking life. Now this is the first verse of the Dhammapada. To me, the most beautiful verse. Mind precedes all mental states. Mind is their chief. They are all mind-wrought. If with an impure mind a person speaks or acts, suffering follows him like the wheel that follows the foot of the ox. Mind precedes all mental states. Mind is their chief. They are all mind-wrought. If with a pure mind a person speaks or acts, happiness follows him like his never-departing shadow. These two verses was what made me study the Buddha Dhamma. Because these two verses is completely different from any teaching of any theistic religion. First, your world exists in your mind. Second, you create your world. Third, everything that you and I do, it begins in the mind. Why did you all do sadhu, sadhu, sadhu 3 times just now? Is it because of tradition? Yeah, many people will say it's tradition. But in Buddhism, we must never accept things like that. We must always ask why. Must never commit intellectual suicide. We say 3 times, sadhu, 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 when somebody does very good work, when somebody does very good teaching, when somebody does an act of charity, whatever. And we say, wow, well done. Sadhu means excellent or well done. Today's generation, awesome. But why 3 times? And traditionally you do 3 positions. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. It is because what Sister Janice did was excellent in bodily conduct, excellent in speech, and excellent in thoughts. That we say, sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Sadhu for that wonderful thought of doing something good. Sadhu for that wonderful thought that gave you what you said. Sadhu for that wonderful thought that gave you what you did. That's why we say sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. 3 positions, body, speech, mind. All right? So mind precedes all mental states. When you have good things, like most of us here have good things, we are actually more in heaven, less in hell. The Buddha said, it is like a shadow that follows you. The good actions that you have done from thought that became speech and action, now they have given you good things. Study hard, went to good university, good job. But how many of us are aware of our shadow? None. We take our shadow for granted. None of us are actually aware of our shadows. So the good things that happen to us, we take for granted. What happens when we switch off all the lights in this room? Where does your shadow go to? It disappears. So even though you have great blessings now, if you're not mindful and you're just eating overnight rice and you don't continue to create good things, do good things, do things which are hard work, wholesome, your good karma, your good shadow can disappear when you enter a dark room. But it's okay. You can always switch on the light again, and that shadow will come back. Now, when we got bad things, something bad happened to us, quarrel with mother-in-law, or mother-in-law quarrel with daughter-in-law. Now, I'm a doctor, so I see a lot of elderly people. The elderly people who see me at every opportunity, they will tell me about that terrible daughter-in-law. Endlessly. They see me 10 times, tell me the same story 10 times. Because nobody else is going to listen, so I have to listen. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Because the Buddha said, when it is something unpleasant, it is like the wheel that follows the foot of the bullock cart. You know, the ox have to drag that huge bullock cart. You never for a moment forget that you are dragging that huge bullock cart. But we forget our shadows. So the unpleasant things, we complain to everybody, oh, it's so horrible, this, that. The good things we take for granted. Now the Buddha asks us to be always mindful. Mind precedes all mental states. You create your world. Okay? So I would like to end here. It's 12:10, Ngam Ngam Ho. And that's the Noble Eightfold Path on your right. Hopefully on your left is also the Noble Eightfold Path. Where's Jenny? Yes, Jenny. Do you see it? You are right mindfulness. Samasati. Okay? Thank you.
So thank you very much, Dr. Wong. Very insightful talk. So now we would like to open the floor for question and answer. So, brothers and sisters, anybody of you who would like to know more about hell? One question.
Hi, Dr. Wong. I have a question. If somebody does a bad deed, which we think is a bad deed, however, he thinks that it's a good deed. Like, for example, a terrorist were to kill people in a bomb, does he go to heaven or hell? Thank you.
So you have what we call the practice of the Dhamma, which I talked about yesterday. And we say, what is the practice of the Dhamma? And we say, all of you mustn't just learn the Dhamma, you must practice the Dhamma. And we endlessly tell people, you must practice the Dhamma, you must practice the Dhamma. And then one fine day, somebody brave enough raise a hand and say, actually, what do you mean by practice the Dhamma? What do I do? When you play the piano, you can practice scales. So what do you mean when we say you practice the Dhamma? Are there scales for you to practice? So I spoke yesterday afternoon to the group who were here on what do you mean by the practice of the Dhamma? The practice of the Dhamma rests on the foundation of right views. Okay? That is the antivirus of your computer. You have 5 physical senses and the mind, the 6 sense doors. Anything that comes in through these 6 sense doors, and there are a lot of things which comes in through these 6 sense doors, you have to get the antivirus to scan these things. And what is this antivirus? It is the right view. The right view of impermanence, that all things are changing. The right view of dukkha, that because all things are impermanent, nothing is completely satisfactory. And the right view of anatta, that all things are compound. There is no solid core in any one of you, or in this table, or in this cup, which makes it eternally, permanently, unchangeably you or a cup. It is also the right views of cause and effect, that everything you do is a cause that under the appropriate condition will have an effect. And I've already said just now, cause and effect is neutral. It is not something morally right or morally wrong. It is just cause and effect. You drop a cup, you drop a cup. You kill someone, you kill someone. You marry a second wife, you marry a second wife. You deal with the effects of the cause that you had planted. Okay? So, that's right views. Based on these right views, which filters everything that comes in through your 6 sense doors, you react. A computer is not an IT virus program, full stop. A computer also does things. And you have your RAM. Your random access memory is your workstation. Basically, it's the workstation of the computer. And everything is done within that random access memory. So what is that random access memory? The antivirus has scanned the information. Now you have to react. And your random access memory is right thoughts, which is the next step of your Eightfold Path. The first step in your Eightfold Path is right view, then right thoughts. Because based on the views which are correct, then you have the thoughts which are correct, and you do things. So what are right thoughts based on these right views, the Buddha said? 3 things. Renunciation, benevolence, and ahimsa. I cannot find a word to translate ahimsa. The first one, renunciation. Renunciation is of 2 levels. You have the renunciation of the Sangha, and you have the renunciation of lay people like you and me. The renunciation of lay people like you and me is our slow letting go of greed, craving, attachment, ego. Like snake and ladders, we begin at the first square, and as you progress, you slowly let go more and more of your greed, your hatred, your ignorance, your attachment, your ego. And now and then, as we travel up the 99 to the 100 square, we get eaten by a snake and we, boom, go back down. Okay? But nevertheless, we still keep doing this. The renunciation of the Sangha is a little bit different. They begin right at the very top, maybe at the 99 square. and they hope to achieve the 100 square. Okay, so they renounce literally everything that you and I hold as dear, like money, position, status, sex, clothes, war paint, hair. They renounce that in one shot. Boom, let go. And that's why the Sangha must be in a community. Because if you have a new Sangha member and you put him alone, and he mixed with Brother Jerry, with me, and then we go eat terka, and then last night we ate sashimi, and then next day we eat, what did we eat this morning? We ate yong tau fu. And how is the poor Sangha going to renounce? And every day we're asking, what are we going to eat for lunch? Right? So that's why the Sangha must be in a Sangha community which supports his renunciation. All right? But don't worry, you and me, we are starting at the 99 square, and we go. Remember, right thoughts, right intention is the second step. And that's something active. So the first thing is, I have seen this coming through my six sense doors, I'm reacting, is what I am doing in reaction based on greed, hatred, anger, etc., etc. But that's also not good enough, because the next step in right thoughts is benevolence. You must act now. And what is this benevolence? It's metta karuna, loving kindness, compassion. Just the thoughts are not good enough. You must do. Many of you are very, very talented in many aspects. Some are more, some are less. So a very musically inclined person might say, I will offer my skill of writing music for the Sangha. Musical hymns, imi ui, etc., etc. While others will say, oh, I'm a very good businessman. I can make lots of money. I will use this to support the good causes, which is fine. Another one might be this, another one might be that. Another one actually physically go and say, I will help out. That's benevolence, which is actually one of the hallmarks of the Buddhist tradition. And the third is ahimsa. Ahimsa means not harming anything. Not just a human, but anything. I am not going to harm my family, my friends, my enemy, my competitor, not even the earth, not even the longkang. Brother Henry wrote to me the other day, maybe cannot enter stream entry, but longkang entry maybe. Then he realized, but all longkangs in Singapore end up in the septic tank. So also cannot. So, ahimsa, you don't want to harm anything in that thoughts now translated into action. All right? Remember I told you, right view includes karma, and karma is neutral. You study, you don't study. You work hard, you don't work hard. You're careless, you're careful. You're mindful, you're mindless. These are all just things that we do. So now he's asking, somebody says, I'm going to kill you because you don't believe in my religion. First, that is wrong view. It is based on, first, a big ego. That only I am right, you are wrong. I'm going to heaven, you're going to hell. You are an infidel. Second, it is anything but benevolence. Third, it is anything but ahimsa. So you can see from that foundation of wrong views, your thoughts become wrong. And that is why faith, which is blind, is very, very dangerous. And the Buddha said, even what I say, you must verify. Never just accept it on faith. Remember, in the 5 faculties, faith is only the beginning. Okay? So, does it mean he go to heaven? Does it mean he go to hell? All right? Does it mean because I believe I will go to heaven, I will go to heaven? Please remember, death recognizes no religion. You can call yourself anything. It recognizes no religion. The Buddha is not a Buddhist. Buddhism was only invented in the 1800s when the British ruled Sri Lanka. And they created forms. And there was a space called religion. Now, what are all these Sri Lankas going to write? So, religion, Buddhism. A new word came out, Buddhism. Okay? But death does not recognize any religion. Death is just death. Okay? Events are just events. So, this is what I mean. We create actions. Actions have consequences. And so that person who has done murder, who has done bad things, of course will be hunted for the rest of his life. If he's caught, he goes to prison. He spends time in prison. He will really reflect, am I in heaven or am I in hell? Okay? So the events go on. It really doesn't make any difference whether I believe that mine is the only one which is correct. I believe that my religion is the only one that is correct. It makes no difference what you believe. You might say, oh, I don't believe in rebirth. Oh, I don't believe that there is life after death. Or I believe there is life after death. Does it make any difference after you die? Does what you say, oh, I believe that only Theravada Buddhism is correct. The rest not correct. And within Theravada Buddhism, only this branch of this particular tradition is correct. It makes no difference. The truth is the truth. The truth goes on whatever you believe. The truth remains the truth. So, for people who do unwholesome things, there are unwholesome consequences, just like dropping a cup. What you believe makes absolutely no difference. And of course, there's always jokes going around, 72 virgins, blah, 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 blah. And my wife always reminds me, they didn't say it's female, you know. And another one remind me, they didn't say it's human, you know. So, okay, I hope I've answered your question. Yes, Brother Ao.
Any other questions, brothers and sisters? Maybe last one.
Okay.
Oh, I got one last question.
Yes,
Hello.
brother.
Morning, brothers and sisters. Barring going beyond life and death, is there such, in this present life or as a human being, is there such a thing as too much heaven is bad or too much of a good thing is bad? So perhaps you would like to elaborate, because there seem to be a lot of very successful people who take their lives. Of course, we don't know what are the private battles inside their heads. So perhaps, brother, you would like to
Our
share?
definition of heaven, of course, differs. You speak to somebody who lives in a tropical climate like us, our definition of heaven is a nice, cool place. You know, children like to see snow. Wow, so beautiful. You speak to someone who lives in a very cold country like Tasmania, they hate snow. That's what's so nice about snow. So our definition of what is heaven, really different. And my best example is durian. For many, many Malaysians and Singaporeans, durian season is heaven. For dear brother in there, he might say, I wish this fruit never exists. So our definition of what is heaven actually differs. We all have different interpretation. If you look at what the late Venerable Dhammananda taught just now, he is emphatic that where you are in a mental sphere whereby you have got lots and lots of happiness, lots and lots of peace, contentment, that, he said, is heaven, by whatever name we might wish to classify it. And if you are somebody, for example, my patients with chronic renal failure who are on dialysis 3 times a week, sometimes when you drop by and see them and they say, Ayah, Yisang, just let me die. Why am I doing this week after week, 4 hours sitting there and dialysis? Now that I go home, then cannot drink water, then must wait until next dialysis, and then come here dialyze again. And I had a patient who told me, she was dialyzed for more than 15 or 16 years. She told me, you know, doctor, when I started, I lived in a bungalow house. Now I live in a terrace house because of this. Of course, it's very expensive. So to them, she said, what am I doing this for? She said, 3 times a week I come here, just sit down there, do this, then go home, and I wait for another 2 days later, and then come back and I repeat this. Then I go home, then I wait, and I come back and I repeat this. She said, this is hell. Just let me die. So this is exactly what Venerable Dhammananda said. Where there is endless unhappiness, discontentment, you are in hell. Now, can rich people be in hell? Yeah, we have members in Metta Lodge who are wealthy, but yet, before, they got a lot of unhappy events, and that's why they ended up coming to Metta Lodge. Yeah, serious. Most people come because of problems. Most people come because they got issues which they want to seek for answers or for help. And so some of them actually realize, yeah, my family is wealthy. We've got lots of money, but we are all not happy. So can there be too much happiness? If you look at the canon, it is very, very often stated that the best place to practice is where we are. Where you see happiness, where you see dukkha, where you experience both now and then, and you want to be able to avoid dukkha permanently, which is why you are in Buddhist fellowship, because you have seen both. For people who have lives of luxury, who have not seen dukkha, actually they have no need for the Dhamma, because they do not see a need for the Dhamma. If you tell me that, actually I never have any suffering, all my life perfectly smooth, then you will not see a need for the Dhamma. Okay? It's only people who have truly experienced dukkha who say, yes, what the Buddha said is correct. It's like, for example, many of my medical students. I started a Buddhist society in Monash to try and get them. And you realize that whenever we organize anything and you put the word ism, very few people turn out. Because they say, I don't see a need for it. Why do I need to attend all these things? So you have to now teach them in life lessons, etc., rather than as ism. Because I ask my students, what dukkha? I got no money, SMS my father or WhatsApp my father, tomorrow the bank account got money. Okay? Whatever dukkha is transferred to my father. He got him. No dukkha. So why are you talking about telling me to end dukkha? Just one SMS got him and dukkha ended. So this is what I mean. And I hope what brother means is that if you are in a really very smooth, luxurious lifetime, you don't see the need to strive. Most people who I see are serious practitioners, very interested, are people who have gone through some form of crisis, and then they realize, yes, life is very unpredictable. Life is very subject to unexpected twists and turns. And then you say, I want to learn more. And the other thing I always tell, is Brother Welly in this room? No, not here yet. Okay. Welly not here yet, huh? Okay. I told Brother Welly once, Buddhists like us, we say we know the way to happiness. We say we understand anicca, dukkha, anatta. We say we know how to deal with this. We are all like watching a movie. And in this movie, it is very sad. Dr. Shivago. The girl dies. Everybody cry. Okay? But then we still realize deep inside, hey, this is only a movie. Okay? Yeah. Korean movies are famous for doing that. Everybody cry when they see Korean movie. But then, Korean TV series, sorry. But then you realize deep inside yourself, hey, this is only a movie. This is only an illusion. It is not reality. It changes. When you study the Buddha Dhamma and you study and realize that things are anicca, dukkha, anatta, you study all that we have discussed. And we deal with life every day. You say, yes, this is very painful, but this is also not real. It is also changing every day. It's like a movie. So we are able to take a step back and look and handle it. So if Buddhists know this, and we know how to handle it, and we know that good will also change, bad will also change, bad emotions will also change, good emotions will also change, and we say, let's enjoy the good times when it's there. The bad times, you deal with it best, it will also change. Then we should be very, very happy people. So if you tell me in here that I am a Buddhist who have been studying the Dhamma, and you are very depressed, you are very sad, I don't think you have learned the Buddha's teachings. Because if you have really learned the Buddha's teachings, you should be a very happy person. And you should be so happy that your colleagues at work and university either think you are a bit manic, or they say, wow, this man really knows how to handle life. Let me find out why is it he is so happy despite whatever external pressures on him. So Brother Valley put a note in his house behind his door. If Buddhists claim to know the way to happiness, we must be very happy or something is wrong. Then he took a photograph and sent it to me. So that is what I mean. That's why Venerable Thich Nhat Hanh says, if you understand the Dhamma, you can convert hell to heaven. And I'll just give you one last sutta, since this is the last question that my chairman said. If you read a Mahayana sutta called the Sixth Platform Sutta, it is a record of conversations between the Venerable Hui Neng, and a lay person, or with monks. The Venerable Hui Neng is supposed to be a fully enlightened being, an arahant. Okay? And somebody asked him, Dear Venerable, it is said that the Western Pure Land, in Chinese, 西天, is 10,800,000 li in Chinese to the west. Which, of course, in those days was very, very far. Okay? No car, no bicycle, no aeroplane. So 10,800,000 li to the west. The Western Pure Land, he said. Amitabha's Western Pure Land. So he asked the Venerable Hui Neng, Venerable, is the Western Pure Land really 10,800,000 li to the west? Well, that's a very important question. Because it deals with a few things. One, is it a physical place to the west? And is it really 10,800 li to the west? And what did the Venerable Hui Neng reply? He said, if your mind is untrained with the 10 unwholesome acts and the 8 wrong views, the 8 opposite of the Eightfold Path, right view, right thoughts, wrong thoughts, right speech, wrong speech, etc. Okay? That means instead of sama, it is the other opposite. So if you do the 10 unwholesome deeds of body, speech, and mind, and the 8 opposite of the rightful path, then the Western Pure Land is indeed 10,800 li away from you. Okay? But if you do the 10 wholesome acts and follow the 8-fold path, right view, right thoughts, etc., the Western Pure Land is immediately in your mind now. So it basically answers a lot of questions that many people ask. I raised this because yesterday someone asked me about this. Okay, so I hope you want to have a heaven. That heaven is 10,800 li away or in you right now. Okay? Thank you. Let's have 3 awesomes.
Awesome, awesome, awesome.
Good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Brothers and sisters, please